Absolute Reality, a study guide to the teachings of Sri Bhagavath. This study guide provides a comprehensive overview of the core concepts, philosophies, and psychological insights presented in the text Absolute Reality by Sri Bhagavath. It is designed to facilitate a deeper understanding of the nature of enlightenment, the mechanics of the mind, and the distinction between temporary experiences and absolute truth. Part 1. Comprehension Quiz Instructions. Answer the following questions in 2 to 3 sentences based on the provided text. 1. What was Sri Bhagavath's central realization regarding the difficulty of attaining enlightenment? After 40 years of search, he realized that enlightenment is surprisingly simple and can happen in a split second. He emphasizes that it does not require difficult meditations or yogic practices, but rather a simple understanding of how the mind functions. 2. How do Sanskrit scholars define the word anantham? And how does this differ from the common interpretation? While most people interpret anantham as bliss, anantham because it offers personal satisfaction, scholars define it as a plus antham, meaning the state of infinite or endless. The text suggests that the common focus on bliss often leads to confusion for spiritual aspirants. 3. According to Ramana Maharshi, how should an aspirant respond to blissful experiences during meditation? Maharshi advises that seekers should not get stuck or stay with blissful experiences, even if they are divine. Instead, one must ask, who is having these experiences? To transcend them and reach the root of existence. 4. What is the dual nature of thought described in the text? Every experience is a combination of two components, the experiencer and the experienced, subject and object. The text argues that these are not two separate things but different dimensions of a single coin, which is thought. 5. Why does the author classify spiritual experiences as bodily experiences? The author asserts that all feelings, whether worldly or spiritual, require the chemical changes in the physical nervous system to be felt. Even if an astral body functions, it does so as thought alone and cannot experience pleasure or pain without contact with the physical body. 6. Explain the difference between dhyana samadhi and jnana samadhi. Dhyana samadhi refers to the state of trance attained through meditational practices. Jnana samadhi, also known as sahaja samadhi or practical trance, is attained through the process of inquiry and is considered a more natural, practical state. 7. How does the analogy of the tongue clarify the state of samadhi? A tongue is naturally tasteless but self-conscious of its own sensitivity. It only knows taste when food is present. Similarly, samadhi is a state of beingness or self-consciousness where the mind is silent and not occupied by external tastes or experiences. 8. What is the psychological consequence of trying to willfully suppress or control a thought? The text compares suppressing a thought to pressing a piano key to stop a sound. The act of pressing the key only renews the music. Fighting against a thought gives it new life, whereas allowing it to fade naturally acknowledges its temporary nature. 9. Describe the irresponsible state mentioned in the context of psychological movements. This state is reached when a person realizes that thoughts and feelings happen spontaneously and unconsciously without their willful effort. By exempting themselves from responsibility for these movements, the mind functions without self-contradiction or the strain of control. 10. What is the vision of oneness in the context of yogic practice versus absolute truth? In yogic practice, oneness is often a temporary experience of reflection created by focused concentration or spreading consciousness. Absolute truth, however, is not a transitory experience, but the permanent, non-dual beingness that remains when all self-contradiction and created dualities disappear. Part 2. Answer. Key 1. Enlightenment's nature. It is a simple understanding of the mind's function, achievable in a split second, without complex yoga. 2. Anantham. Definition. Scholars define it as endless, infinite, a plus antham, though it is popularly mistaken for bliss, anantham. 3. Ramana Maharshi's advice. Seekers should inquire into who is experiencing the bliss to transcend the experience entirely. 4. Duality of thought. It is the illusion that the experiencer and the experienced are separate entities, when they are actually one movement of thought. 5. Bodily experiences. All bliss is felt through the physical nervous system's chemical reactions. Without the body, there is no capacity for pleasure or pain. 6. Samadhi types. Dhyana is reached via meditation. Jnana, sahaja, is reached via inquiry and is a practical, natural state. 7. Tongue analogy. Samadhi is like the tongue's natural, tasteless sensitivity. It is a state of beingness, rather than a specific taste or experience. 8. Thought suppression. Trying to stop a thought is like pressing a piano key. The effort itself renews and strengthens the thought's duration. 9. Irresponsible state. Recognizing that thoughts are spontaneous allows one to stop taking responsibility for them, ending internal struggle. 10. Oneness. Yogic oneness is a temporary mental reflection. Absolute truth is the permanent state of non-contradiction and beingness. Part 3. Essay Questions Instructions. These questions are designed for in-depth reflection and analysis. They do not have provided answers. 1. The biological basis of spirituality. Analyze the author's argument that spiritual bliss is essentially a chemical reaction in the nervous system. How does this perspective change the traditional understanding of divine experiences versus sensual pleasures? 2. The paradox of control. Discuss the text's assertion that the experiencer strengthens itself by taking responsibility for its thoughts. How does the author suggest liberation is achieved through the cessation of this psychological regulation? 3. The role of the substratum. Explain the concept of sath, beingness, as the home or natural state of the individual. Why does the author argue that this state is more important than any blissful spiritual experience? 4. Duality and the mirror analogy. Critique the concept of advaita, non-duality, using the mirror analogy provided in the text. How does the author differentiate between appearance and actuality in this context? 5. Enlightenment as an end of endeavor. Reflect on Sri Bhagavath's personal journey of 40 years ending in a split second. How does his teaching challenge the necessity of long-term meditational foundations for reaching the building of reality? Part 4. Glossary of key terms. Term definition. Advaita, a state of non-duality, the understanding that while many things appear separate, they are basically one. Anantham, literally meaning infinite or endless, often mistakenly equated solely with bliss. Austral body, a conceptual body that functions as thought but lacks the capacity for physical feeling, pleasure, pain, unless connected to the physical body. Chith, the aspect of reality responsible for consciousness, intellect, and the movement of experience. Duality, the misconception that the experiencer is a permanent entity separate from the experienced events. Jnana Samadhi, also known as Sahaja Samadhi, a practical, natural state of trance reached through inquiry. Sath, the basic state of beingness, the non-dual substratum and cause of all experiences. Sahaja Samadhi, practical trance, a state where the body and mind function healthily and unconsciously without self-contradiction. Self-awareness, the practice of paying attention to the I consciousness or knowing the knowing. Substratum, the base or root of existence that remains beyond all temporary, transitory experiences.